This episode is sponsored by the Cornell S.E. Johnson College of Business. The Cornell Executive MBA Americas program is designed for goal achievers from any industry. The program works by advancing your career without interruption, by providing global perspectives and intimate classroom settings, and by challenging, informing, connecting, and propelling you. Achieve your goals with the Cornell Executive MBA Americas program on the weekend and close to home. Search Cornell EMBA Americas in my city today.
Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everyone. It's Megan Oliver, your host for the Ellevate podcast, History Makers. We've got an amazing one for you today. I am so excited for you to hear from her. I just finished recording. It's with Tamia Potter. She is the first Black woman neurosurgery resident at Vanderbilt. We talk about everything, but we talk especially, about her journey through medicine, about graduating from an HBCU. We talk about Southern food because both of us have been living away from the South for quite a while and have recently returned. And so we have some fun with, missing good Southern cooking. It's a really fun one, and I really think you're going to enjoy it. Let's go ahead and get to it now. I am here this week with Tamia Potter. I am so excited to talk to her. And you might have heard her name when we read her off at the end of the episode a while back. She recently became the first Black woman neurosurgery resident at Vanderbilt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Tamia.
Anytime.
So I want to start out by asking, kind of the big question. How did you get to where you are right now, which is neurosurgery, which is so far beyond my understanding that such kudos.
Yeah, thank you. It really started whenever I was a child. I have a lot of nurses in my family on both sides. And that's kind of where I got my medical influence in. My mom specifically was a nurse educator. And so she would go around from like hospital to hospital or teaching facility, teaching nurses, different things, different anatomical lectures. And so I would go with her. And of course, me being a child, I'd be bored. So I just started playing with a lot of the medical equipment, playing with anatomy models, reading things. And I just have always just had an interest in the body. It's never been something that's been taboo to me, like you would think other kids would feel. One of the things my grandma told me when I was really young, me and my dad have a bond of gory movies. And my grandma used to really not like that because she's like, she's too young. She shouldn't be watching that. She said one time me and my dad were watching a movie and I guess someone's heart got ripped out. I don't know. And my grandmother was like, you got to turn the movie off. And she said, I turned to her and I was like, Grandma, it's just a heart. It's okay. And she was just so shocked and so surprised that I just, didn't view the body in such a way that most people do. And so I went to a high school called McCullough County High School where they really encourage you to have a job after you graduate. And so you could be a mechanic, you can be a welder. And they also had a medical academy where you can get your certified nursing assistant license. And so I did that at the age of 17. And then my first job ever, I was working in a nursing home at night. And this was right before I went to college. And so I worked full time at night. And one of the things that I noticed was that every single night I would come in and you're really spending a lot of intimate time with patients. I'd be bathing patients, feeding patients, and they couldn't remember me. And I was like, that's weird. Like you saw me last night, And at the time, I didn't have the educational background of Alzheimer's or dementia or things like that. Or I try to dress a patient and their hands are contracted or they have spinal deformity. And I didn't know that this was like a complication of degenerative, spine and old age. And so it was really interesting to me. And I was like, I wonder why that is. And so I was pre-med, of course, like I always wanted to be a doctor. And even, whenever I would go back home in med school and like just read some of my yearbooks from even middle school, people would be signing them saying like, you're going to be an amazing neurosurgeon. And I'm like, wow, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon back then. It's crazy. And I went to Florida A&M University and I majored pre-med chemistry. And I still continue to work full-time at night. And so I went to the hospital and I would work full-time, 40 hours a week at night. And I was a float CNA at that point. So any floor where they needed help, I was, involved in. I saw everything from pediatrics to OBGYN to oncology. That was my main floor. And one of the things that really stuck out to me were the patients who just had neurological disease and neuropathology, understanding why at some point in time this person was able to communicate with me or they were able to eat or I could feed them and then now I can't. And, naturally just being in the hospital, you were privy to medical personnel. And so I saw a neurosurgeon there and I asked to see a case. And, once I saw a craniotomy, I was sold. I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I have to do. And in my junior year, I did a scholarship or a summer internship at Baylor College of Medicine. And in their neuroscience lab, it was full of MD PhDs. And I told them I was going to go to med school. And they were like, okay, cool. And I kind of really didn't have a plan. So they helped me figure everything out, honestly. And one of the schools on the list that they told me to apply to was Case. And I was like, okay, I'll just go to Case. And so I applied to Case, interviewed at Case, and got in. And just, 5 years later, here I am. So that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, here you are. And there's so much I want to pull from that. But one of the
Mhm.
things I know you talk about, I read a bunch of interviews with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, to prep and everything. And I want to ask, they talk about, match day is when you
Hmm.
found out where you were going. Can you explain? I'm sure there's a lot of, listeners who haven't gone
Hmm.
through, medical school. What is match day and what does it mean?
Yeah, it's honestly one of the craziest processes I think just is in the United States. Basically, in your third going into fourth year of medical school, you just prepare like all your time in medical school is literally in preparation for this moment. And so you do these things called away rotations where you act like a first year resident at the institution that you want to match at. And so, me being from the South, I'm a Southern girl. I really tried to target Southern schools. So, of course, I did my 2 rotations, and it's for 30 days at Cleveland Clinic here in Ohio and also University Hospitals. And then I chose Vanderbilt and Emory because they're both in the South. And you spend 30 days there, and then once you're done, you get a letter of recommendation that you use to apply to residency. And so you apply to residency around like the third week of September, and then you start interviewing. So I did interviews from October all the way until February or like end of January. It was a very long process. And how it works is applicants can rank programs in an order that they interviewed at. So you can only rank a program if you interviewed there, and vice versa. Same things goes for programs. So they can only rank applicants who interviewed there, and you have to match. So it's no secret. I ranked Vanderbilt number one, and so because their neurosurgery program takes 3 people, they would have had to either rank me one, two, or three, or they could have ranked me number four, but then the third person they had on their rank didn't go there. So then I would have matched there. And so you pretty much on the Monday of match week, you find out if you've matched or not. You don't find out where. And then that Friday, you get a letter saying where. So I had a feeling I was going to match, but the truth of the matter is that Friday, you don't know what's in that letter. Like you have no idea. Like I ranked, I think 25 programs. So I could have ended up anywhere in the United States. So, it's a very, very one humbling, but also two, like just an insane experience because you don't know what could be in that letter.
That is why I cannot imagine. First of all, I definitely didn't know that it was first you find out if you even matched,
Yeah,
and then
that's
you
the
have to
scary
wait.
part. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to wait to then find out where you
Yeah,
matched.
those 4 days, it's like, and I think what's even crazier about it is your school knows. But they can't tell you. Yeah, your school knows, and your program director knows. So my program director, Dr. Lola Chambers, she knew, but she couldn't text me or call me or anything like that. So a lot of people know. The only person who doesn't know is you, and so
Yeah,
it's a woof. It was
that's when you
stressful.
text them. You're like, "Come on, give me a hint, any
I
hint."
Yeah, my dean texted me the night before, and he was like, "Are you excited?" And I was like, "Don't text me because I know you know, and you're not gonna tell me." So
Oh, that would kill me.
yeah.
Oh, so I have to say, between the working nights and all of medical school, have you slept in the last 10 years?
No, not really. I'm one of those people that I can get by with, little hours of sleep, but no, not really. I think it's something that just, one, I'm just naturally a night owl, so that works for me. But I also think number two, it's something that it really takes a special person to be able to just accommodate and juggle all those things at the same time because not only are you just doing these things, you actually have to do them very well. Like you don't want to do them at the bare minimum of kind of like at the average bar. You want to make sure that you're giving all that you got. And so, no, I can definitely say that it was a lot of naps in my car. I remember like on my lunch breaks and stuff, I used to just go sleep in my car, napping in between classes. It's funny because if you look at like the alarm setting on my phone, I pretty much have an alarm for every minute of the day. Like honestly, because I just whenever I could take a nap, I would. So if it was at 2:15, I took a nap until 2:20. I have alarms for that, and I find like people was looking at my phone. They're like, "What in the world?" So
Yeah. But you keep your alarms on the phone, then you don't delete them.
I never. I like you can. I'm serious when I say I have alarms for like 2:15 in the morning. Like I have an alarm for almost every time of the day.
I do the same thing, and my mom thinks that's crazy that I have all these alarms. She's like, "Why don't you just delete them when you don't need them?" I'm like, "I could need them tomorrow. You don't. I
Yeah,
don't want to lose
absolutely. You just
them."
never know, right? You just never know.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to say, I want to go back to you mentioned, you were excited to go back to the South.
Hmm.
I did read an interview where you were saying specifically you were really excited because of the food in the South.
Yes, yes. Like I grew up in the country, and a lot of people don't consider Tallahassee, Florida, the country, but it is. The Panhandle is definitely the country. It's like right on there with Georgia, Florida. I mean Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and my grandparents they had a farm. Like they grew all their vegetables fresh and stuff like that. I grew up fishing, all that other stuff, and so it moving to Ohio was hard because it was like you don't really find that like there is southern cooking up here, but it's just not the same. And so one of the things that I really love because I do not cook, but one of the things I do is I love to eat. Having like you could go to anybody's house in the South, and if their grandma's cooking, you know that it's going to be great. And I miss that. Like I miss having that type of environment and just being in that type of culture.
Yes, 100%. So, because I have to tell you, I have lived in New York for the past 5 years, but I grew up in Texas,
Oh
and
wow, okay.
and I recently moved back to Texas, literally last month, and the food is so
Yes,
good.
yes, it is so
It's
good.
like if you ask for a chicken fried steak, elsewhere, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy.
Yes, it's like insane. Like I got up here and I wanted some grits. And everybody's like,
Yes.
"What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I want some grits." And
Yeah.
nobody knows. And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't stay here much longer."
Yeah. No. Yeah. I love that. So like when I was reading that, I was cracking up because I was like, yes, 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 and yes.
Yes.
Alrighty. So I also want to ask about you mentioned in another one of your interviews that you had a ton of mentors throughout your career.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. Do you want to talk about those mentors and then maybe give some advice to anybody at home who's listening who might be struggling to find a mentor?
Yeah, I think my mentors were very, God is just an amazing, amazing person. And he really put people in my life at the right times. And honestly, my first mentor was my OBGYN. And it's just very interesting because he's a legacy of OBGYNs. And so he delivered me, and his father delivered my mother. It was very interesting. And he was the one who really introduced me to, I would have to say, the physician side of medicine. I shadowed him for 4 years. And after that point, that's when I knew no OBGYN for Tamaya. But um, he gave me my first stethoscope. He wrote my letter of recommendation for me to even get into medical school. He was always an amazing person, as Dr. Alexander Brickler. And I really honestly couldn't have gotten into medical school without him. And also Dr. Tanjanika Wilder. She was my anatomy and physiology professor at FAMU, and she really pushed me. Like there was a curriculum she would give the class, but even after class, she would really push me to think harder. Think more critically, not just, stay within the domains of what you were learning. And she really helped to feed my curiosity when it came to the human body. And I honestly, like to this day, I call her for almost anything whenever I have a question because she's just so intelligent. And then when I got to Case, it was very interesting because I did a second look at Case Western. And whenever you come, you stay inside of a dean's home and they feed you that night. And Dr. Robbie and Dr. Haney were the people who I stayed with. And I told them, I said, "Hey, if I come back here, you guys got to take care of me." And they said, "Okay." And then I actually, because they didn't think I was going to come back. And when I came back, they have pretty much been like a second set of grandparents for me. Like, it doesn't matter what I needed or what happened or anything, they have taken me in like I am literally one of their children. And I could not have survived without them. And my actual society dean, Dr. Todd Otteson, it was just so interesting because whenever I moved to Cleveland, I had never seen snow. And so there was just one day it started snowing. And, I didn't also know that there were like really old houses in the northern United States. And so we had like radiators. I didn't know how it worked. I was like, "What's going on?" And I called him for the first time, and he knew exactly who I was. Like he didn't have to ask, because he's a society dean over 200 something students. And he was like, "This must be Tobias." And I was like, "How did you know that?" But um, he was the one who really helped me navigate through case and navigate through life in general, just living in the northern United States, and has always just been a staple for me. And then neurosurgery wise, at the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Pablo Racinos and Dr. Varun Kashetri, they really opened their hearts and their lab to me to really help me to increase and foster my curiosity when it came to research. When I got into medical school, I didn't have the strongest research background and knowledge about it. And Dr. Prane Soni. It's just one of those things to where you just don't realize looking back how fortunate that you were to have these experiences with people. And he literally took the time out of his day, like once a week, to just teach me about the scientific method and processes, and the mentorship that lab gave me is just honestly priceless. And just, whenever I got here, I had never seen an African American female neurosurgeon until I met Dr. Tiffany Hodges at University Hospitals. And I was like, whoa, you exist. Like I didn't know that this was a thing. Like I thought I was just going to be doing this. And her and Dr. Crystal Tomei, she's also a pediatric neurosurgeon. They have also just been honestly like a staple and a rock and a foundation for me here, because going on this journey it can be pretty tough, but whenever you have people who've dealt with some of the same issues that you've dealt with before and have been supporting you, one of the things I can say is that what I really appreciate about every single mentor that I've had is that they've accepted me for who I am, and they just continue to nourish me and pour into me and create opportunities to where they know that I can shine and that I can give back. And that's something that I want to be able to emulate as a mentor, because they've just been so amazing experiences that I've had with them.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know you mentioned that you learned pretty quickly that OBGYN was not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there ever a non-neurosurgery path, or was it or was it always just going to be neurosurgery?
I think it was always neurosurgery. Like a lot of people ask me if I like a lot of people ask me if I wouldn't do neurosurgery, what would I do? I really loved physics. And fun fact, because I was on scholarship at FAMU, I was only allowed to be a biology or a chemistry major. I actually wanted to be a physics major and minor in philosophy, but my scholarship didn't let me do that because I really loved physics. And so if I was not going to do neurosurgery, I really like quantum physics and quantum mechanics. I think I would have got a PhD in that.
That
I know.
That's so. Yeah, I was never. I was an English major. I was so far from, like, I always thought science. I've said this before. Whenever we have people in science on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I think science is fascinating. Like,
Yes.
I love to watch a documentary about science, but I'm terrible at math. So
Yeah.
so actually practicing science, horrible. But like, I think it's
Yes.
also interesting.
Yeah, I think I like fields that explain why we do what we do. And I feel like chemistry, physics, biology, all of those things kind of really put things on a bigger picture. So I would always just gravitate towards something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I like about science is I'm like, explain to me why this works, but like, I'm not going to be able to get in there and like do the math to like check your work. I just don't
Yeah.
trust you. Yeah. So I also want to go back to your school, to your college. You
Mhm.
are a graduate of an HBCU.
Yes.
Yeah, which has that they've gotten more and more attention, in the last few years, especially now that our vice president
Mhm.
is a proud graduate of one. What does it mean to you to have that as part of your career, as part of your resume?
I think it's just a special experience. A lot of people think that when you go to HBCU or when you attend one, you're sacrificing quality. Whatever, that's honestly just not the case. There are a lot of brilliant and intelligent people who are at HBCUs and brilliant and intelligent students who are there. And I think being able to have that experience was really nice. Growing up in Wakulla County, I was always like the only Black girl in almost every class, whenever I played sports and things like that, even in my neighborhood. And so being able to go to a place where every single person, from the teacher all the way down to students and secretaries and chairs of the department, everybody looked like you. And it was just like a common acceptance of who you are and who we are as Black people and a culture. It was just a really beautiful experience. And I honestly think everyone should have that experience, to where no one's ever questioning any part of you, why you wear your hair the way you wear your hair, and why do you have this, and why do you speak this way, and what you're talking about. It's just a natural, immediate click and understanding of one another in a community. And honestly, it's just something that I really wish that was just more widespread and that people got to experience. It was a place where your teachers not only taught you, but they prayed for you. They made sure that you were good. If they cooked, the other night, they bring some in for you. It was a very intimate and family style setting. And it's something that I really missed moving up here because, at Case is an amazing institution, but the classrooms are larger. My class was 230, 240 people, which is huge. But like at FAMU, I'd be in a class maybe sometimes. Like, of course, when I got into the higher level courses like physical chemistry, it'd be like 4 or 5 of us. So you really got a personal relationship with the people who were teaching you. And because the school was small, a person would be teaching you entry level courses, and then as you got up into your junior and senior year, they teach you again. So they got to see your growth, and they got to really grow up with you. And I think that I really like that. I really like that.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like I went to a little liberal arts college in Texas, but it sounds a lot like that kind of environment where your mentors get to see you throughout your college career.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Well, so we all know that, as I've said, I would be helpless at studying medicine, but what would your advice be? Let's say that there is someone out there who is interested in maybe one day pursuing medicine, or whose kid is interested in pursuing medicine. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for them to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, so one of the things that I would tell people is that you have to make this work for you, because as the higher you go in this process, the less time you have. And so you have to make sure that you're being very efficient, and that the things that you do are kind of synergistic and work together. And what I mean by that is I would tutor. Yeah, so I would always tutor, because if you can teach something, it means you know it. So if I was struggling in something in class, it means that I need to go be able to teach it. And I would teach my friends if we were coming up and having a test. And so, in college, I worked as a tutor, not only as a CNA in the hospital. And so, whenever I was working at night, whenever I had downtime, I would also study as well. So almost everything that I do pretty much corresponds and helps one another. I mean, I've had 3 jobs throughout medical school as well, and each one of them again played on one another. So where I was tutoring concepts that I would see in the hospital and med school courses and things like that. Um, Another thing that I would tell them is to be prepared for sacrifice. There were a lot of times where when I look back at my college years or my high school years, I wish that I partied more. I wish that I had a lot more free time and things like that, because, uh, you know, what you're doing is different than what the average population is doing. And so it means that you are going to miss out on some things. You may not be able to stay up late like everybody else. You may not be able to go out because you have to make these grades and you have to make sure you're competitive to get in. And so you will be making some sacrifices, but don't be too hard on yourself. That if I could go back and give myself some advice, I would have said, hey, put the book down, go out this time. And then lastly, that your journey is just going to look different. Each person who pursues medicine, I mean, yes, we're all doing the same thing, but the way that we get there is completely different. Whenever I started CASE, the average age of people in my class was 27 years old. I started at 21. But, it means that they've had a life before this, and that they have different experiences that they can bring to the table. And so you should never minimize your experience or what it is that you have to bring in that. It may look scary because you may see that everyone's doing some of the same things, and you may think that this thing that they're doing will work for you, and how they study will work for you, and this, that, and the other, and it won't. And it's okay to be unique, and it's okay to have different experiences, and kind of carve your own path, because as long as you get there, that's really all that matters. And to be okay with that. I think that's one of the hard things I would have to say that happens in medicine, is because the higher you go, you kind of feel like mistakes are kind of not fixable, like they're permanent. And so you just move in a way that can sometimes be very constricting, but realize that it's okay. Like, you will make a mistake, and it's okay. And there's grace for that. And there's people there to help you with that. And then lastly, to just always ask for help. I didn't get here alone. And everything that I do and everything that I will be doing in the future is not going to be for Tamaya. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I can't operate on myself. I can't teach myself all these concepts. Like, what good is it that I know all this information? I'm supposed to give back. I'm supposed to mentor, to teach, to help, to heal. And so, I didn't get here by myself, and I have a million people to thank to help me, who helped me get here. And so it's the same thing. When you need help, ask, because the sooner you ask for help, the better things can be. And it's easier to ask for help and do things together than it is to do them by yourself, because medicine is just also a team sport in general. You're never going to be doing anything by yourself. So learning to work with others and learning when to ask for help, and being respectful and considerate of others' experiences and thoughts and feelings, I think is really important.
Yes, yes, so important. Moving to the future a bit,
Mm-hmm.
what are you looking forward to most about Vanderbilt?
I would just have to say, a lot of people think it's weird when I say this, but just doing one thing. A lot of my life, I've always been juggling like 15 million things at the same time, working multiple jobs, going to school full time, being a part of this club, doing this mentorship. But now I literally, like, my job is to learn how to operate, is to learn how to take care and heal patients, is to learn how to do research for the patients. I'm doing one thing. And I think that's one of the things that I'm looking for, because I can apply all my energy and all my time into doing those things. And just also being in a place that was just very welcoming to me. I think that was something that I really appreciated when I did spend my 30 days there at Vanderbilt, was that I missed the yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. I missed the Southern accents. I miss, all of that. And just being in that type of environment, I think that's what I'm looking for. And just finally being able to do what I've kind of wanted to do my entire life. And I think when you say that, people are like, what do you mean? When you're in high school, you still have to take all these broad classes to get into college. When you're in college, you're taking all these broad classes, a little bit more focus to get into med school. And then when you're in med school, you have to learn every single specialty before you can finally say, okay, I'm going to do this. Now I can finally do this, like I can finally do the thing that I've been wanting to do, and just put a lot of energy and focus into that.
Yes, no, I actually know exactly what you're talking about, even just of like focusing. Because I remember when I was in college and I was also working, when I graduated college and I went into the working world, people were like, oh, well, now's when the adult stuff comes. And I was like, this is easy. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
before I was working and going to school and doing this and extracurriculars. I'm like, now all I'm doing is working. Oh, I can do this.
Yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah. So I have one final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that we're all standing on the shoulders of others who've made history before us. So I always like to finish these by asking what history maker or history makers inspired you?
I would have to say Dr. Alexa Kennedy. She was the first African American female neurosurgeon in the United States. And she called me and I almost cried. I was like, no, my goodness. Like, I've read so much about you. I've done so many projects on you. Like, I've seen so many pictures of her. Her, Dr. Sonia Eden, like I said, Dr. Tiffany Hodges, Dr. Debbie Blades. These are African American female neurosurgeons that have done this before. And they've trained during a time where the world just was not that nice to African American people. And so to see them go through that process, and one, to just also be so kind and so patient and so loving. Definitely, these are some people that I will always look up to. They have supported me, they have been there for me, and I honestly just cannot. It's just, for me, being able to talk to some of these people who are in history books, who have founded things, it's just absolutely insane to just call them up and be like, hey, how you doing? And they'll be like, hey, Tamia. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it still is like a big shock to me that I am able to talk to some of these history makers and these giant people. And again, I didn't get here alone. And I just have to give all the thanks to them, and everyone else who helped me get here.
Yeah. Well, I think that is all that I have for you today. I could talk to you for another hour, but sadly we don't have the time.
Yes.
So I want to thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story and sharing your advice. Thank you so much, Tamia.
Yeah, anytime.
Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Katherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.